Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our free Healthy at Work webinar series. My name is Kevin Morris. I am a health promotion specialist from the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit in the Chronic Disease Injury Prevention Department. I will be the moderator for the webinar today. Before we begin, we just have a few housekeeping items to cover. One is the audio. If you are having any difficulty hearing me, please double check the volume on your speakers and make sure they are turned up. For questions, you can post questions as you're listening, and our presenter will answer them at the end of the presentation. If we cannot get to all the questions today, we will send a link to all the questions and answers to you within a week. Also, after the webinar, we will also send you a link to this recording and resources that are mentioned during the webinar. A short feedback survey will also be included, and we highly encourage you to complete that survey as it will help us to improve our webinars and serve you better. In addition, if you are in a group, we ask that you can let us know the number in your group. That'll just get us a better idea of who's actually attending today. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Karen Gignac. Karen holds a master's degree in social work and has been working in the field of mental health for over 30 years. She is currently the manager of mental health promotion at the Canadian Mental Health Association for the Windsor-Essex County branch. Karen is also a trainer of nonviolent crisis intervention through the Crisis Prevention Institute and a certified trainer for Mental Health Works, a social enterprise of CMHA Ontario. Karen is also a member of the Working Toward Wellness Committee. We thank Karen for speaking with us today on Healthy Holidays, a last-minute survival guide. So Karen, I will now pass the mic over to you.
Thanks, Kevin, and thank you to the Health Unit for having me today, and also to all of you for being here, whether you're live or listening to this at a future date. I want to talk to you today about stress and the holidays. It's a very popular topic this time of year, and I know I have It's a Last-Minute Survival Guide, but you know what? We're not quite at the last minute yet. We still have lots of time to prepare, so I don't want to stress you out with that. Today, what I do want to do is focus on the impact of stress that it has on our health, as well as our mental health, and the mental health of the people around us. That's really important as well. We're going to look at some mindful strategies for stress reduction during and after the holidays. And if you're on a budget, we'll talk a little bit about some low cost or no cost activities and gift ideas. But this will also be in a link and a resource that will be posted about a week after the webinar, after today's airing. And if you need it right away, though, you can reach out to me at CMHA and I can get those to you. We will be talking about how to avoid the post-holiday crash, and also tips for supporting someone who is grieving during the holidays. That is a year-round thing, but can pose some challenges for people during the holidays. So I'm going to start with a question. Who do you want to be? Which of these next two pictures I'm going to show you? Do you want to be this person over the holidays? Or do you want to be this person? Doesn't that look a lot better? I sure think so anyway. When I saw that, it really resonated. That's the person that I want to be over the holidays. So how do we get there? A good question. First, before we kind of go down that road, let's talk about the impact of stress on our health. You know, stress, there can be mild, very reversible signs and symptoms, and this is where that acknowledging and knowing what your stressors are, which we're going to talk about. And that is if you're kind of getting some signs and symptoms like headache or fatigue, maybe a little irritability, frequent colds, weight gain. Those are some of the things that tend to be stress related. Moderate and still reversible, and maybe even mild neck and back pain, digestive issues, inflammation, things like that. Sometimes we get a little, when we're in that stress mode, it's that fight or flight, right? That our brain is just focused on survival at that time. So big decisions are hard to make. It's really hard for us to focus and make decisions. So we need to figure out how to get back into that healthy state of mind where we can make really good informed choices about what we're doing. Because if we end up in that autopilot on stress and those stress hormones take over, then they can just really run amok. So really being aware of what it is that we're experiencing and what could be behind those symptoms that we're experiencing as well. And, you know, stress is definitely known for causing very, very serious health implications if we ignore it. Over time, we can develop things like type 2 diabetes, we can become overweight, heart issues, stroke, cancer, depression, anxiety, just to name but a few of the things. But again, being aware is probably 80%. I don't know exactly the ratio would be, but awareness is key to prevention and also making changes. It's never, never too late to start a healthy lifestyle and to really start to look at what our stressors are. Because, I was even Santa and Mrs. Claus have stress. Do you remember this TV show? I think it's going to probably air again this year. Picture might be a little bit blurry, but here we have the beginnings of Kris Kringle and Jessica, who then later became known as Santa and Mrs. Claus. Well, look at them when they first started out, and then the years might have taken a little bit of toll on them, and a little bit of stress eating, and then it became kind of an expectation. So now Santa has to put on the weight there when Christmas rolls around. But just be mindful of what that can do for us. So I talked about knowing your stress and how stress gets your attention. So there is a famous quote by Alice Miller. It says, "Your body will present its bill," and that is no lie. So we can say that we often experience stress, like I just mentioned. We might feel it in our guts, we might feel it in our neck, it's tension, muscle aches, headaches, fatigue, different things like that. So really knowing what grabs your attention is so important for understanding our stress and then how to reverse it. So on that theme of knowing yourself, knowing what your triggers are, because we're all different. And I know a lot of people that get completely energized by the holiday season. They can't wait to get out there in those crowds. They can't wait to socialize and have all kinds of things going on. But for a lot of us, triggers can be things like crowds. So we'll talk about this when we talk about the ABCs of stress management. But if crowds are a real trigger for you, then you might want to think, going shopping on a Saturday afternoon at Devonshire Mall or Costco or whatever may not be the best time for you. And big gatherings can be a problem for a lot of us. Family, sometimes we'd like to put aside those differences, and that's kind of an important thing to do around the holidays. But it's easier said than done for a lot of folks. And then we have the screaming, whining children of all ages, because some of us older children can be prone to a little bit of whining as well when things aren't going our way. And then we have the old, all of the holiday gatherings and the meal preparation or entertaining if you're doing that. And while I have this last, it certainly is by no means least, is finances, money. Money is a huge stressor all year round. And at Christmas, it can be an even bigger stressor, especially if we're not paying attention to our budget. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And like I said, if you're a stress junkie and you love this type of year, then you might be energized by it. But if you really want a stress-free holiday season, there are some things that you can do to kind of bring that about a little bit easier. Now let's go back to our ABCs of stress management. And of course, it starts with acknowledge the stress. And we talked about that. If you don't know what your triggers are, if you don't know where your stress comes from, then it's going to be really difficult to do something about it in a meaningful way. So we've kind of covered that bit a little bit. And so the next question we ask is saying no. Can we avoid the stressor? Can we not put ourselves in that situation where that stressor that we know is going to get us is going to be present? So I'm not talking about procrastination. Let's go back to the crowds. Can you avoid crowds over the holidays? Yeah, if you plan for it. There are lots of options. People can shop online anymore, and now with the way things are, you can do even up to last minute shopping online and still have things delivered by Christmas. But maybe you don't want to avoid that completely. You like the mall, and the mall is a great place to be over the holidays at certain times. If you want to get that holiday spirit, you want to experience that, then maybe you can alter your stressor a little bit by going after work on a weeknight. Monday to Wednesday, I would say, would be really good times to go when there's a little bit less traffic in the malls. And it's something also you can combine with some socialization. Maybe a couple of your work friends or other friends or whatever can meet up at the mall. They have a fabulous new food court now in the Devonshire with healthy food options. So that's an awesome place to meet and have a light meal and go back to shop and maybe schedule a break where you go and get hydrated with a nice bottle of water. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of keeping some of those routines over the holidays in terms of what you're eating, nutrition wise, and hydration, and good sleep, and all of those other things. And now that's another way that we can alter our stressors is by looking at maybe altering our even preconceived notions about what the holiday is all about. So it's really important to know what Christmas means to you or the holiday season means to you. And are you focusing on those things? So if relationships is important to you, then maybe we shouldn't focus so much of our attention on how much money on spending money and buying elaborate gifts. We can have that talk. We have to manage our expectations that we have about the holidays and sometimes we have to manage the expectations of others, including our own kids. Even Santa's on a budget and only has so much room in his sleigh. We have to look at having that conversation about what people can reasonably expect from us over the holidays, and both with not only our budget but our time as well. So we can look at different things that we can avoid or alter. Certainly traffic is a big one at during the holiday season. So, if you normally on your way home from work have to pass by, Howard Avenue to the Expressway, maybe look at a different route home for a few weeks. It's as simple as that. And also, changing up your routine is a really great way to improve your mental health and build resiliency as well. Doing something new, doing something out of the ordinary, it creates new passageways in the brain and new connections in the brain. I'm not going to talk a lot about neuroscience. I'm not an expert in that, but I do understand that there's a big connection, and a lot of us think that, well, we were told that we're the way we are by the time we're this age, and we can't change that. Our brains are wired. They're hardwired a certain way. Well, sorry, you can't use that excuse anymore because science has discovered that that's not exactly true. It's not true at all. That new pathways can be formed by changing the way that we look at things, and that will help us change the way we think about things, and then that will help us change the way we behave in situations. So there are ways and things that we can continue to learn right through our lifetime. Now, there are certain stressors that you may not be able to alter or avoid. And then I think that we have to accept that it is what it is, and this too shall pass. Now, remember that the holidays are only a very short duration of the year. And, again, coming into those managing our expectations and our perceptions and doing our planning and all of our old perceived ideas about the way holidays should be or the way that we should feel over the holidays. You're entitled to feel the way that you feel. And just because it's the holidays isn't going to change those feelings. But you can be aware of them and kind of do a little workaround on that and think, how can I handle this situation maybe differently? And if you can think back to last year at Christmas time or the holiday season, what was the biggest stressor that you had? And evaluate that. Evaluate what you really enjoyed about the holidays, what you least enjoyed about the holidays, and maybe what could you do differently this year or next year or the year after that's going to have a positive impact on your well-being over the holidays. But we have to accept that some things are just going to be stressful. If you're hosting a Christmas dinner and that stresses you out, accept that it's one day. I mean, you still can alter that by asking, in our family, everybody brings something. So it's not all on one person. And, you have to know that if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. These are the people that love you, right? So they might have whatever calamity happens, or it's going to turn into a good laugh later on. And I can tell you some stories of some of my um, Christmas cooking experiences that too bad we don't have enough time to go into that right now. But accepting that the stressor is there and this too shall pass. Because when we don't acknowledge that we have a stressor in our life, it's going to bubble up, right? And the more we resist something, the more we suffer. We can't always avoid the pain that comes with being human, but we can avoid the suffering by accepting more readily what is happening. I'm not trying to fight it, and then going to your coping strategies. So building healthy coping strategies, so that you can change that perception that you have of the stressor, because it isn't the thing, the situation, the event that stresses us out. Most of the time, it is our perception of that thing, that person, that relationship, that event, that situation that creates the stress. So if we can change the way we look at our stress, then the actual stressor can change into something less detrimental to our health. So that's really important to recognize. And when we talk about the post-holiday crash, it's something that's inevitable, and this a lot of this does go back to our budget, right? So if we've blown the budget, and we haven't figured out things that we can do for low cost, no cost activities, like some things that I was thinking about, and then I kind of got some ideas online as well, was getting the kids together, or if you don't have kids, your friends, and get out and see the Christmas lights. Take a walk in your neighborhood after the holiday meal, or any night, just to get out and get that exercise that we need. Um, go see the Christmas lights. Maybe bring some hot chocolate with you and be a treat with if you've got the kids. You can go and do that, no cost. Going out. When's the last time you went out Christmas caroling? That might be something you might think about this year. I am not a singer, but in a large group, I can belt something out, I guess. But finding that balance throughout the holidays is really important. Sticking to important self care routines. You don't want to blow everything just because it's the holidays. You work hard all year to maintain your health, and it's nice to kind of have a little bit of a splurge now and then. But if you're doing it every day, you're going to have those constant insulin spikes. And when insulin spike comes down, then it's the cravings come up, and also your mood is affected quite significantly with when you have that crash after an insulin spike, and you become irritable and moody and a little bit less fun to be around, let's just say. So when as much as possible, get that good night's sleep and rest in between activities, even if you're not necessarily sleeping, but have some downtime. If you like to read, if that's what helps you kind of just settle down in the evening, then make sure you build those things into your holiday schedule. Ah, when I talk about holiday schedule, write it out. Get a calendar and put everything that you have to do down. So planning is really an important aspect of managing stress as well. And when you've got a lot of things coming at you, you may not remember, oh, I said yes to this and I said yes to that. And oh no, now I've got things 3 nights in a row and I still have to get up and go to work and I still have shopping to do and yada, yada, yada. You have all this stuff. So if you have it all down, when somebody invites you to something, you let them know, this year I am taking it a little bit easier because I think I was burning the candle at both ends a little bit too much last year. So I want to just kind of calm down the amount of activities I have. So let me look at my calendar and see what I've committed to. and then I'll get back to you. I'd love to see you. Maybe I can't come for dinner, but maybe we can drop in after dinner for a quick hello. So you can, again, either avoid that stressor by not going and or alter the stressor by saying that you'll come, but maybe only for a quick hello, and then be on your way. So there are things that you can do, and then you don't have to be that person. I saw a meme that a lot of these things I'd love to show you, but copyright is a problem, so I don't want to get into too much trouble. What you got to do um, is just finding that balance and learning to say no. The meme that I was thinking of said, "Yeah, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas so that the roads are too snowy and I won't have to come to your holiday party, because you said yes when you really should have said no." So other things that you can do, by keeping that balance throughout the holidays is to stick to that budget. Write down everything that you've purchased for whom. And another thing, along with the gift giving idea, is that there are lots of things that you can do to save a little bit of money. But think about what are your values and what are your unwritten rules about gift giving. Do you have to give a gift to everybody that gives you one? Do you have to spend the same amount of money that everybody spends? So knowing those kinds of things. And by the way, all of this is going to be in the resource materials that will be posted following the webinar. It might take about a week for everything to be online, but all of these links, and there's some really great articles. So if I found a good article, I put the link on the resource page. So if some of this kind of rings for you, you might want to go in and check out some of the other ideas. Okay. And the other thing too about January is, that post-holiday crash is to think about when you go back to work. Don't overschedule yourself the first day or so when you're back in the office. It's really important to kind of manage your to-do list, because especially if you have been off for a week or so, it takes a bit to ramp back up, and everybody wants to hear about your holidays and that kind of thing. And so manage that, but also plan some activities for January. So to kind of, balance out that letdown crash that people have when all of a sudden, you're go, 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 and then there's nothing. So plan some outings with friends, a get together at somebody's house, that kind of thing. And remember all of the other things that we talked about by keeping good nutrition, getting your sunlight. That can be really challenging this time of year when it's dark early, and we seem to be not having as much sunlight as usual. I don't know if you've noticed that, but getting out when you can. I know that some of those UV rays can get through the clouds, so getting some time outside, maybe 20 minutes a day, the fresh air is really good for you anyway. But get out there and get that sunlight. And sometimes you can pick up those lights that they have to ward off the seasonal affective disorder. A lot of that comes from the theory that there isn't enough sunlight and vitamin D. I'm not a medical person, so I'm not giving medical advice, but taking a vitamin D3 supplement is something that has worked for me and my family for quite some time, as well as just really, getting that rest and eating well to keep your immune system charged. That's the other thing too, when your insulin spikes a lot, when you're doing a lot of that, your immune system tends to tank. So keeping that in mind, and the more you do that, the more difficult it is to say no to those sugar cravings. But you can see in this slide how there's a balance of rest, relaxation, exercise, good eating, and just all around self care. Humor is really important, and there's some great holiday movies out there that you can watch with your family. Maybe change it up from It's a Wonderful Life to something a little more upbeat, like Elf, for instance. I resisted watching that one, but I did finally watch it, and it was pretty cute. And there are a few different movies out there that can kind of give you that pick me up, or an older movie that you watched when you were a kid to kind of bring back that excitement that you had when you were a child. A little bit of humor too. And don't forget, right? The charges are correct, sir. The airline now charges for for emotional baggage as well. So, keeping your sense of humor if you're going to take that holiday trip, um, and then coming back to work after that. So just kind of know what you're in for. Getting your groove on, both when you're listening to and creating music, that can have an impact on your life by positively affecting your mood and your mental health. But just moving your body in general, in tapping your toes to some music, getting up and moving, all of these things are really wonderful activities to keep your stress levels on an even balance that we're talking about here. And that is really the main goal, is finding that balance over the holidays. Now, a word about retail and the wonderful people that work in retail or in the service industries. They can take the brunt of our stress. I talked about earlier how our stress impacts our own health, but also the health of others. Well, some of those others are working behind the counter, and a great idea that actually this is something that my daughter, who's a registered dietitian, she's told me this for a long, long time, is bring snacks, bring healthy snacks with you while you're out there shopping. First of all, it's going to save you a lot of money from going to the concession stands and that. Unless you're having a sit down meal, that's okay. But bring in some fruit and some nuts and some healthy snacks with you will help to keep those insulin spikes to a minimum. Because if you just had that big giant Cinnabon and it's an hour later and you're in that big line at one of the stores in the mall and it's crowded and what you're looking for you can't find, who's going to take the brunt of all of that? That's the poor person working behind the counter. So remember, they have stress too, and we need to be mindful of our own behavior and the impact that we have on others. So just a little note to our friends who work retail is that we're thinking about you too. Another way to kind of look at the holidays and to manage stress is to give. That old adage, it's better to give than to receive. Well, that is true. So there can be some benefits to retail therapy I was talking about, but hey, this one you need to be careful about because if you overdo it and overdo your budget, but the research does tell us that giving or doing something nice for a friend or even a stranger, thanking someone, showing gratitude, all of those things can be very conducive to building good, solid mental health for us. It's incredibly rewarding for us and it creates connections with the people around us. So it's really important that we think about giving to others. And again, if we don't have a big budget, we don't have lots of money, there are ways that we can give to others that doesn't cost anything. We can give our time, and a lot for a lot of people, time is actually a more it is of maybe we're short on time, so the time that we do give is really really valuable, and I think other people would appreciate that as well. Take notice of the beauty around you. One thing I love to do is to get out and look at the holiday lights and just savor the moment. We talked about that, but getting outside when there's just been a snowfall and you see how the snow is on the trees, like take notice of that. When we're in our busy lives and we're on that autopilot of stress, we're not noticing the beauty around us because, you know, all we have is what's happening right here, right now. And if we're so much and so trapped in our own heads, spinning around about what we haven't done, what we need to do, what somebody else has done, all of these things that we're thinking about, we're going to miss some real simple and free blessings that are all around us every day in nature. So get outside and take advantage of that. Even looking up at the stars, or even I love just to sit with all the lights off except the lights of my Christmas tree and just to just take some deep breaths and relax and think about how grateful I am for everything that I have in my life. And this is something we cannot underestimate the importance of gratitude. It is so important. Um, Science and studies have shown that even focusing on things like you may not feel grateful, you may be feeling overwhelmed, but you could still find something that you're grateful for. That if you're sleeping with a roof over your head that night, something is insignificant that there are a lot of people that don't have that. So, being grateful for the little things that you have, even being grateful that somebody may have acknowledged you and smiled at you or opened the door for you when you had your hands full. Just little things. Write down at least 5 things every night before you go to bed of what you're grateful for, what you've noticed in your life that day, and sooner rather than later, what you'll find is you start looking for those things to be grateful for when you're getting up because you want to have something to write down at the end of the day. And I find that that's a really great tool. And that has been shown to lift depression for people. So if you don't need to have a diagnosis of depression or anxiety to benefit from gratitude, it will help keep that balance and maintain that good mental health that you want to have. So I want to take a couple of minutes now to talk about how important it is to recognize and support someone who is grieving. And I checked in with my colleagues in the bereavement program at CMHA, and we do want you to know that we have those resources available. And every month we do an information session. It's about 90 minutes, and it's once a month, and you can come in and learn and understand about grief if you're grieving. But even if you are supporting someone who is grieving, it's good for you to be educated, and that's open and free to the public. You just have to sign up, and you can go on our website at CMHA. Oh, I'm going to forget my website now that I'm standing here in front of you. But if you Google CMHA Windsor-Essex, it'll come right up. That's funny. Okay, so things that you can do to support somebody is that, support their holiday choices. Just like I was talking that, you can park your perceived ideas of what we should be doing over the holiday. We need to do that for our friends and loved ones who may be experiencing grief and are struggling to get into that holiday spirit. Sure, invite them to your gatherings, but don't push them to come. Be prepared if their plans change. That's just the way it is when someone is grieving. That they may say, yes, I'm going to be there, and then something happens at the last minute and they're just not able to go out the door. Send a thoughtful holiday card, or, if you're going to give them a gift, consider a memorial gift or a donation. I remember, how meaningful it was to me. My mother passed away just 2 years ago, 1 month exactly before Christmas, and that was really tough. But because of where I work and the friends that I have, I had lots of support and some really generous and meaningful gifts, like even like an ornament for the tree or some way to remember some kind of a memorial gift, or and people making donations in my mother's name, which was awesome. Offering practical help and support, like what can I do to help you right now? Whether it's picking up stuff for them, maybe they're just getting to the store is not going to work for them. Maybe you can, while you're doing your holiday shopping, you can pick up a couple things on their list as well. Listening without minimizing, judging, or giving any advice is really important. People just want you to listen. They don't need you to fix their problem, and you can't, right? It's nothing. There's nothing to fix. Remember, grief doesn't only impact the first holiday season as well. We live in this culture where you have 3 or 5 days to grieve, and you're expected to life goes on, get over it, and get moving back again. But that's not the reality. And the holidays can be a trigger for people who are grieving. And as well as some things that we can do to support someone. There's things that we could avoid doing. And one of them is avoiding the person, right? So being present, being patient, and listening, and saying the wrong thing is not as bad as not being there, right? So you can say, I don't really know what to say, but I just want to be with you. I just want to do what I can to support you. So just listen and don't minimize or sugarcoat. Words to avoid for sure are it could be worse or starting any sentence with at least. And telling someone they need to be strong is out the window, right? You need to be strong for the kids. You need to be strong for your mom and dad. No, people need to acknowledge their feelings and feel their feelings. And above all, don't disappear. You know, it's important that you're there. And sometimes that can be tough. But you know what? You'll be glad you were. So some additional stress, holiday stress resources. I want to talk a little bit about what you can do. Like I said, there's links to holiday activities that I'm going to post that are free or low cost. If you're looking for stuff right now and you can't wait until these things are posted online, you can email us at CMHA. We're at mhp at cmha-wecb.on.ca, and you can reach out to us and I can send you some of these resources if they're not posted quickly enough for you. And also I can add some of your great ideas for low cost or no cost activities and gift giving ideas. Um, one of the one of the really cool ones I saw was really talking about doing if you're going to do a little Christmas cheat, do it big. Like so, if you've got a lot of teacher presents to do, you can find a real cool idea in a catalog. Those online catalogs are filled with great ideas, and I have a link for that as well. And you know, you can make what I really love, and I've received these, is a cookie recipe with a jar, a clear jar with all the ingredients kind of layered in there. It looks really neat, and then tied on there under like a canning jar with a little bit of holiday fabric under the lid and a ribbon with the recipe on there, and you're done. I love getting that. Another great one is the multi-bean soup recipe. The beans look really cool, but I have to say, I personally don't like beans. So if any of my people are listening, no bean soup for me. I will keep it though, and maybe I can regift it. So, but you'll never know, right? So there's lots of things, and like I said, that you can try. The Tourism Windsor-Essex and Pelee Island guide for holiday guide is out. I have that link as well. But if you want to look that up, you can look by your community or just look at all of the events going on. There's often free skates and free swim and lots of different activities that you can go out and see. In Kingsville, they do a great holiday light display. The Jackson Park, I'm going there this year. I didn't get to it last year, but it looked spectacular. And everyone that I talked to that went to that really enjoyed it. So lots of things that you can do to get out of the house that don't cost an arm and a leg. And then knowing where to find help if everything becomes a little bit too overwhelming for you. There's a resource, we've been talking a lot about Bounce Back this year. It's a new resource and it's free to all Ontarians age 15 and over for anyone who is dealing with mild to moderate depression or anxiety. And you know what? You don't even have to have a diagnosis of depression or anxiety. You can go on their website. It's up on the screen and I'll have that on the resource as well. But the bouncebackontario.ca, you can go in and even just sign in with an email address and a code that they give you right on the website, and you can start looking at some of the videos, and that may be all you need to give you some kind of ideas on how to look at some of the stress that you're under, lift some of the low mood that you may be experiencing, or the anxious stressful feelings that are bound to creep up on us from time to time this time of the year, regardless of the holidays. And there's also Big White Wall, which is another free resource, but that one's for 16 plus, and it has online some courses that you can take. There's artistic things you can do, and it's a forum. It's a live forum where other people, a lot of people will say, I've tried to talk to my family about how I'm feeling, but they just don't get it. People on this website will get it, and so they may be able to help support you, and you can support others. That's another great way is when we give and receive that help. It's really a good boost for our mental health. And if you are experiencing any type of crisis, then we have some really great immediate resources in addition to the online resources of Bounce Back. And by the way, Bounce Back, I should just mention before I move on, is that Bounce Back it's a CBT based, so cognitive behavioral therapy based activity or strength building. It's not therapy in itself, but it's using telephone coaching and workbooks. So this is a great resource for anyone who has difficulty getting out of the house and going to and going out for counseling or seeing somebody. Is that you can do these right in your own home. You'll talk to somebody on the phone. They'll figure out what your needs are, what to start with, and they have a lot of workbooks to choose from. And then you can just get those things in the mail. As long as you have a mailing address and a telephone, you can do this program. But again, you can just do it anonymously online as well. So go and check it out and see if that's right for you. And if you do need that immediate help, we have our crisis line and our resources available at the Transitional Stability Center. And I know that name is going to be changing for that, but it's located at 744 Olette Avenue. And the crisis line, it's a one number, right? 519-973-4435. That will be always answered by a crisis worker. But if you're not experiencing a crisis, but you just want to get connected to a resource right now, then they'll put you through to one of our intake staff who will kind of see what your needs are. And that you can walk into the Transitional Stability Center at 744 Olette 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Our intake people are on site Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, but there's always going to be somebody there. A crisis worker is always available to help. After 8 o'clock, though, you need to call. You can still call that line, and you can go to the emergency department at Windsor Regional on Olette Avenue. And of course, we have our distress center from noon to midnight as well at 256-5000. They also have an online chat that you can find. So that brings us back to where we want to be. And I'm kind of guessing that we all want to be the person with our feet up, with our nice cozy socks on. Maybe we don't have a fireplace, but we can throw a blanket over there and have a nice hot cup of tea or cider and enjoy the light and the reason for this. So I'm going to turn it back to Kevin and see if we have any questions.
Well, thank you, Karen, for a great presentation. And yes, at this time we can take some questions for sure, if there's any there. And I think you also had asked for if they had any tips.
Yes.
We'd love for those. So if you want to use the chat there, we'll give you a minute or so to type in those questions. And once again, this will be within about a week or so, usually about a week. We'll have all the information posted for you. And also, if you are in a group, we appreciate that you let us know how many are in your group for our numbers. So we'll give you a minute or two for that. And while that's going on, I had a quick question, Karen. Just in terms of you're talking about the grieving process and what can workplaces do? You had tips up there. Can colleagues and employees and employers follow similar types of tips, or is there anything? Because it can be, how should they approach their colleagues in those times?
Yeah, knowing what somebody needs is really helpful. So if the person is just returning to work after a loss, and usually they're going to talk to their supervisor and their HR department if it's a bigger workplace that has a dedicated human resource department, and it would be good to ask the person, how would you like to be supported? Because I know that when I first got back to work, it was like I didn't really want anyone to bring it up just because the emotions were so close to the surface, and I wanted to focus on my work. I wanted to focus on that and kind of take a break from grief. And but other people are okay, and it's okay for someone just to acknowledge and say, whatever. Like, but if you're unsure what to do, having somebody ask the individual what their preferences are, and those might change from day to day.
Mhm.
And maybe they'll have, like, I know someone that I worked with had like a signal that they just kind of went like, nope, not right now. And it was like, okay, I got it. Just knowing that you want to reach out, that you're there, that you're present, I think speaks volumes. Even though they may not want you to bring it. I'll have to ask my bereavement colleagues if I handled that one okay.
I think I think everyone's saying how great a job you did, and I appreciate your presentation. And I just wanted to for a tip myself, I just as part of the Windsor-Essex Community Emotion Group, just for everyone out there, as Karen mentioned, the municipalities do are running certain ones will be running the free skates or swims for families. So it is a great way for in terms of affordability to get out there and with a family do something active. Probably a great way to release some stress during the holidays. So
That at Charles Clark Square, I didn't see if they had anything. They didn't have anything posted as of a few days ago about a schedule. They usually have some skating outside too, right? And there's a church nearby that actually has skates that people can like borrow for free.
yeah, they have this, and I would check on the best place obviously is to check the Parks and Rec
Yeah.
portion of the City of Windsor website, and they also have Lansbury Rink that they do open up as well
Oh yeah.
at certain times too, depending on the weather, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, there. I think that's the good thing is to try. There are things out there we can do to keep us stress free. Thank you for all the tips, and I want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you again, Karen, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
And again, we will have everything posted within a week, and our next one will be in early 2019, and we'll have more details on that. Thanks again.